Jeffery Cohen, thank you so much. You were one of the four
Yeah.
people inside Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville who were held hostage for hours on Saturday. And so I first wanted to ask you, how are you doing at this moment?
So I'm doing, about as well as can be expected. I'm doing okay. I got sleep last night, which is a big thing. I don't think I got more than an hour or two sleep Saturday night. So that adrenaline has worn down and the emotions are there. They're a little bit below the surface. So if they poke up every once in a while, I apologize to everyone, but you know, that's reality.
Well, certainly no need to apologize. How would you describe the ordeal that you went through?
It was something that I wouldn't want to wish on anybody or go through again myself. Uh, you know, First of all, it wasn't surreal, it was very real. We were all very aware of what was going on at the time. I would say that the big things to be aware of and the big things that I was thinking of from within the first few seconds when I knew something odd was happening was let's make sure we get out of this. The very first thing I did, for example, was I have my cell phone next to me. I dialed 911 and turned it over on the chair. And that brought the Colleyville police within just a few moments. Time dilates in these things, so it seemed like hours, but I know it was just a few moments, and that helped. I also made sure that I knew where the exits were, and strategically and tactically, I know those two are different, but both positioned myself as close as I could to the exits and to have a clear access to the exits, and then did my best to get the rest of us all over in that same area so that we would have a clear shot out. The goal from the first minute was let's get out of here alive.
Well, let me ask you, because you mentioned a lot of things there.
Yeah,
And so you dialed 911
yeah.
and you could hear them pick up, but did you have a chance to say anything or you couldn't? You just wanted them to hear what was going on.
I just wanted them to hear what was going on. And I turned the phone over and walked away from it so as not to bring attention to the phone. He had instructed us to come to the back. So got up, made sure that he could clearly see I had nothing in my hands, and walked a little bit toward him, walked toward the aisle so that I had moved. He saw me move and he wouldn't feel threatened. And it wasn't until later that he actually let us call our family. And at that point, I did. I called my wife, I called my daughter, called my son, and very quickly left a Facebook message. At that point, I generally did not think we would get out. So I wanted to say something. I also wanted to make sure that, somebody might see that and call the police or make sure that there was a response going on.
What was that conversation like to your wife and family?
It was difficult. It was very difficult. It was, you know, um, this is what's going on. Uh, I love you. And remember me. And that was about it. I wanted to make sure that I got to talk to each of them before he made us put them down or shut it off or anything like that. So they were very short and mostly, quick things. I also wanted to make sure that I didn't show a lot of emotion. I wanted to be, I don't know if this is true or not, but I didn't want to give him any power by, being emotional or anything like that. I wanted us to maintain dignity and to maintain a little bit of control of ourselves. And one of the things that I've got to say for all of us, the whole time we maintained composure. Anybody who knows me will tell you I'm a hothead, and I will tend to raise my voice or things like that. Never raised my voice the entire 11 plus hours that we were in there. Never, did anything that would cause it. And that was just keeping control so that we could manage the situation as best as we could on our side.
But your wife and your children, if that's who you were else speaking with, how were they able to keep it together? I mean, I could just imagine I would be a wreck. My family would be a wreck.
If I were receiving that call, I would absolutely be a wreck too. And much to my wife's credit, she called the Colleyville police to ask if there was a place for the families. She got into that mode of being a person who has to perform. And then, when we reunited later at the Colleyville Elementary School, and this is after midnight, after we've been debriefed, you know, tears flow. The bodies shake. Uh, and, I probably violated what the FBI wanted us to do. But as soon as I got out, I texted each of them and told them we're out, we're okay. So, it there's no saying that this wasn't extremely emotional, but you got to keep things in check as best you can. And it was not easy. And, my stomach is still churning. I still have indigestion from it, I'm sure. But you do what you got to do. If that makes sense to people, I hope it does.
Did he ever point the gun at your head and at the other's head specifically?
So he was motioning around, but most of the time it was chest high. And so when I was pointing at me, I move like this, I move like this. Uh, but I mean, he did from time to time point it toward our heads, but he didn't do one of these, in a threatening way. Perhaps he did in that last half hour. I may not remember exactly, but most of the time it was toward the chest.
Let me ask you, Rabbi Charlie Citron Walker was interviewed this morning, and he said that he and the two others, I assume you were one of them at the time, because one of the hostage people being held hostage was freed earlier.
Earlier, yeah.
And so he said that he threw a chair
Yes, he did.
at the hostage taker. Can you take me to that time, please?
Okay, so but you need to understand that long before we escaped, we had been preparing to escape. So we had made it clear that we would have a clear path to the door. I strategically sat on the row that approached the door as throughout the day, others moved toward it. When one of our people was feeling sick and I went over to help him, I made him come and sit at a chair near me so that we would be on the door. Later, when we got the pizza, rather than sit at the table, Rabbi Charlie came and sat over where we were so that, again, we would be clear shot to the door. We knew what we were doing and that was planned. And that's really important because that's what helped. If we had been all over the place, we wouldn't have been able to do it. Secondly, so let's get into that immediate thing. Throughout most of the day, he was, I'm going to say, fairly calm. He was trying to get the phone call and he didn't want to have to kill anyone else. He wanted to just die himself. The last half hour or so, everything began to devolve and his demeanor changed. He was speaking differently. He was very upset. At one point, he said he was going to shoot each of us, put a bullet in each of us. And that was the first time that he said that. And then just a few moments later, he said, I'm going to make you get down on your knees, get down on your knees. At that point, I reached in my chair and I got up like this, and I know I stared right at him. And I may have shaken my head like this. I don't recall, but I know I mouthed no. And just that glare was the first time that we had showed any aggression toward him. We weren't subservient at that point. He started backing away immediately, and he went and sat down. Now I didn't see him put his gun down, but I did see him go to pour some soda. And when he did that, Rabbi Charlie picked up the chair, threw it, yelled, "Run." I didn't see the chair go until as running. The third person actually got a step in front of me. Now he had been sick earlier, so I grabbed him under the arms and I pushed him through the door. He hit the release to get the door open, and it flung open. He ran. I heard Charlie behind me. I tripped and went down kind of hard scuffed my knee, bounced my nose a little bit.
I'm sorry, but were you, when you tripped, I mean, you fell to the ground and had to get up?
Oh
And
yeah.
were you worried that he was going to catch you and kill you?
I mean, yes, a little bit, but I was more concentrated on getting through that hedgerow. I thought I was all the way, or at least halfway under. I've come to find out that most of my body was out there. But yeah, he followed us out, and he was out there for what seemed like an eternity, but was actually it wasn't just a few seconds. And as soon as he was back inside, the one of the officers yelled, "Come to the front, come to the front." And I grabbed my glasses and ran. Coach would have been happy. I probably did my best 40 ever. Uh, but yeah, I ran, and then we were all together. And moments after that, the breach occurred, and they went in after him. But it had been reported yesterday that we had been released or rescued. No, we escaped. We were consciously watching and looking for those opportunities. And I have to say that if one has an opportunity, let me rephrase that. Every religious organization, every organization that has meetings, and certainly Jewish organizations should have these um, active shooter training or active shooter courses, because that is what saved our lives. That is
You had you had
absolutely what saved our lives.
you had been through this.
Yeah, I went through this. It was probably 6, 8 months ago. I quite frankly, in days of COVID, nothing changes, so you don't know when things are. But yeah, we went through it. We had someone from the SCN walk through with us and point out things that we needed to be aware of and things that we needed to know. We have taken some actions as a result of that. But most importantly, I mean, I could go into any other building today, and the first thing I'm going to look for is, all right, where are the exits? How can I get there? And I mean, this was before this event, also, not just because of it. So you need to do that. Everyone needs to take this kind of course. It's well worthwhile. Can I bring up one other thing, if I may? Uh,
Yes.
this shooter or this attacker, he did not come in the way some of the others have in the last few years to, I just want to kill a bunch of Jews. This guy came, he chose our synagogue because he thought it was closest to the federal facility at Carswell. I'm sorry, I've spent too many years here. But he thought it was that since we were closest, he bought into the anti-Semitic tropes that Jews control the world, Jews control the media, Jews control the banks. And because he believed this, he genuinely thought that we could call up President Biden, that we could call up President Trump and have them release her because we're Jews and we have all this power.
He said that
Not
to
how
you.
things work. Yes, he did. He said it to us. He said it repeatedly because this is what he believed. He so we as humans need to oppose these tropes. When we hear it, we need to question it. We need to not let them go because they do damage. They do real damage.
Did he ever go on a rant, a tirade of anti-Semitism?
He did anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, anti-U.S., anti-Israel, anti-women, anti-gay, anti-blacks. There was not one um, one group he didn't try to. Oh, anti-Muslim. Uh, he went after everybody, and I do think that he we do know that he had some mental problems, and I'm sure that led to it. But yeah, he went on continuous rants against everybody, and most of it was because the Jews control everything. That's why we need to do it because we control everything.
Let me ask you, I want to go back to your escape for a minute, and then come back on some of these other issues we're discussing. Did he fire a shot at you after the three of you had escaped?
So I don't know. I believe that there were several shots fired and before the breach, and I don't know if he was firing at us. It is certainly possible. As I said, he went back in, and then I ran, so I would have run by the stained glass windows. He would have seen a shadow, so he may very well have been firing at me. He may have been firing at the FBI agents at the front of the building, FBI, SWAT, police, and everybody that was there. He may have just been firing in frustration. I don't know.
How? Why did his demeanor suddenly change in the hour leading up to your escape?
Frustration. He was tired. He said that he stayed up all night. He stayed in a park and that he marched all night in the park, that he didn't sleep. He had to do that to stay warm. He was definitely showing, um, I don't want this misinterpreted as a temper tantrum, but he was frustrated and tired and angry, and he hadn't really eaten anything but some potato chips. So I think all of that, plus the stress. And at that point, he was frustrated because Siddiqui was not willing to talk to him. And he was frustrated that what he thought is that the government, the capital G government, whoever they are, not necessarily the people we were talking to, but wasn't going to let him do it, and that they showed no compassion or sympathy. And I think it just got to him, and he broke. And as I said, we know this guy suffered from mental illness, untreated mental illness. So, or we believe that. That is what his brother had reported.
How difficult, if at all, will it be for you to go back into your synagogue for a Shabbat service or any other function?
I'm glad you asked that question because I've been thinking about that myself. And I don't know the answer. I'd like to think that on the one hand, I'm going to go in and I'm going to walk in and it's going to show the strength of me and of our congregation and of our community. On the other hand, you know, we all know that traumatic events do things to people and it do affect them. And I may not be able to walk in immediately, but I hope that I can. I, when COVID happened, like many religious groups, we started meeting online. And early on, I was running all of those Zoom calls and flipping the pages and then helped the rabbi come up with the slide deck. Well, he produced the slide deck and I helped go through it. And we did this every day or every service for a year. And I did every service. And I'm not complaining. I was happy to do it. I'm proud to do it. I see it as something that I was give back. But when we were able to start coming back in the room and social distancing, keeping our masks on, doing things safely, there is a comfort to being in your home place of worship that is different. We have I believe it's Hebrew word havana, which means, uh, excuse me a sec, excuse me, it means respect or having that sense of holiness, for lack of a better word. And to do the services here at my desk where I do my normal work, where I work every day from home, where I met with my friends for a year on meetings like this, to go back into the sanctuary, to have that sense of community that wasn't the same is important. And I prefer that. I greatly prefer it. Now I understand the reality that, can't always do that, but when we could, and it was important to me. So therefore, to come back to the original question, I'm hoping that I'll be able to go back and we'll see how things go. But I can't promise. I don't know.
How much of a part of that is, you know, you feel threatened as a Jew that you can't even pray in your own synagogue peacefully?
So I went to school in Pittsburgh, and excuse me, after Tree of Life, that bothered me more than this. Um, as an American, as a Texan, I can't say that I've always felt welcome, but those people who are not welcome, they're the exception. They are rare and far apart. They are virulent. They're a stain on humankind. They exist. Um, but I don't feel, even with this guy coming in, even with him disrupting our service, even with him holding us for 11 hours, and then I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure soiling our space. Um, you know, I don't feel that that is the issue. I really don't. As I said, in general, Americans are good people. Texans are all good people. Good people, and I haven't seen a whole lot. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and it exists here in our community, and we have problems two towns over that everybody has read about and everybody knows about. But we can get through those people. We can absolutely get through those. We just need to work on it. This is not the same thing.
You mentioned Zoom before.
Yeah,
Were you aware that this was all going out on Zoom? And
not just aware, Jack. The whole idea was, we put this out on Zoom so that we can have people come in. We've got a lot of people who join that way because it's either too far or they're not able to come in, or it's just more convenient. But we've had people who are sick and they can this way come online, join the community, or are worried about getting sick. So we do the Zoom regularly. But when it was taken on, we wanted to make sure wanted to make sure, and I don't know if they used it or not. Okay, I want to make clear, I do not know, but I wanted to make sure that we stayed on. And we even, at one point, someone had mentioned, well, let's just shut it off. It's like, no, keep it on, keep it on. There may be some information, and I don't want to share his name, but uh, shout out to my friend who stayed on and had to listen to it all. And again, I apologize for the emotion. I mean, it's still pretty raw, okay? But he had to listen to this all, and I know it was tough for him. But thanks, man. We know you were there. We appreciate it. And like I said, if this was useful to the police, great. If it wasn't, we still knew what we were doing by keeping it there.
Well, I'm just amazed, quite frankly, that you have been able to hold it together because I know, like I said before, I personally would be a wreck. And just sharing your experience with everybody and doing so in such a calm way, it's just very impressive. I don't know how you do that.
Thanks. It's not easy. I mean, I've got a lump here, and you saw it bubbled up. The emotion bubbles up, and it probably will for a while, but we heal.
Are you planning to go to tonight's service?
I right now I'm planning to. I may have something that I need to jump on beforehand, but yeah, right now I'm planning to be there. Um, it's important that we as a community come together.
Well, Jeffrey Cohen, we want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We really appreciate your time. We're glad you are well, and thank you again.
Hey, thank you, and thanks to everybody at Channel 11. Take care.
You take care.